I started out, and I still work a lot, but I started out working, 80-hour weeks, 7 days a week, never taking a vacation,
Mhm.
and things have definitely um, loosened up since then to where I can afford to take a vacation. Like, for example, I'm taking my family to Fiji. Next week, we leave for Fiji
Wow.
and we'll be gone for about 10 days.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. I mean, that's gonna be a rough 10 days. I know you're gonna have a hard time sitting on those beaches and. All right. Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Own the Exit. I'm here solo in the studio today with our guest. Aaron is on a trip, and I'm just can't believe the opportunity that we have today to interview this amazing guest. I met Gib Irons back in October of last year down in New Orleans at an event that we were there together. And this guy immediately impressed me. He has built a tremendously successful law firm in Greenville, North Carolina, as well as more recently growing a real estate backed private equity firm, also based there in Greenville, North Carolina. Gib is a father, a husband, lives a lifestyle by design, and has a lot to add to our Own the Exit community in terms of entrepreneurship, investing, different things like that. So I'm excited today to welcome our guest to Own the Exit, Gib Irons. Gib, thanks for being on the show, man.
Caleb, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely, Gib. So why don't you just take a moment? Would love to, for our guests or for our listeners rather, to kind of get to know you a little bit, hear just a little bit of your backstory, that kind of thing. So I'd love to hear, just a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So, Caleb, I'm a trial attorney. I've been practicing law for 17 years now, in Eastern North Carolina. And I started practicing back in 2006. Worked for a real estate firm for a very brief period of time, but I was always very interested in real estate. And the being a real estate attorney is a little bit different in that you're just pushing paper all the time, doing a bunch of real estate closings, and that
Sure.
didn't really sit well with me. I wanted to get an opportunity to go into court and actually try cases, and so. Um, After about a year and a half of doing real estate law, I began a career as a litigation attorney. And I've done a lot of high net worth divorce over my career. My firm does a lot of personal injury, but mostly my experience has been bench trials in divorce cases. And I've built the law firm to where now we have 5 attorneys, we have 10 support staff members, and we have 3 offices located in Greenville, New Bern, and Morehead City, North Carolina.
Oh,
And yeah, I love practicing law. I don't have any intention to step away from it. But I did get into real estate investing back in 2019, and I was actually in a fishing tournament called the Big Rock Blue Marlin Tournament, and out on a boat, a buddy of mine that invited me to fish was telling me that he had acquired 200 units, 200 condominiums, and he was using the Burr method to fix them up, and
mhm.
he really sparked an interest in me. So I walked off that boat a different person, and I decided, this guy didn't have a ton of education, but he had just been tremendously successful because he was an action taker. And I
Yeah.
realized that the difference between me and him was that I had overanalyzed, how hard would it be to get into real estate? Can I handle, doing something else? All those limiting beliefs that we have, um, you know,
Sure.
being a trial attorney, I thought I don't have time to do anything else. And this guy really stirred something up inside of me. And so I came out and I went on a buying spree and bought 14 properties in a period of 14 months. And it
Wow.
just kept going from there. And yeah, I've done a lot more since then, but that's where my love affair with real estate started. And so today, I spend the majority of my time running the law firm, but I do spend probably 30 to 40% of my time working on real estate. And I love both of them. I'm not one of those
Yeah.
guys that says I'm going to totally exit what the law firm or whatever my primary business is. I'm not one
Right.
of those guys. I love um I love practicing law and want to keep doing it, but I also want to have an exit plan like you talk about
Yeah.
on your show. And I want it to be a very definitive one, and one that does not involve me having to live, for pennies on the dollar of what I'm accustomed to getting.
Absolutely, Gib. No, that's tremendous. And so many, I think, of our listeners probably share at least the desire to invest in real estate, but sometimes just don't really know exactly how to do it in the right way to where it works in tandem with their primary business, the thing that they're awesome at. But I want to back up for a second and talk a little bit
Sure.
about, because I'm really impressed with the fact that you have built a law firm with three different locations, all these other attorneys, all this support staff. Like you've built, a lot of people don't automatically connect that a law firm is a business, right? Like it's a company.
It
It
is.
doesn't just take a good skilled attorney in the courtroom or a good skilled attorney, in creating legal documents or whatever it is. It's like it actually takes an entrepreneurial mind to be an attorney that builds his own practice to the magnitude that you have built. And it seems to me like with all the other attorneys that you have, all the other support staff that you have, you are actually able to control the amount of active involvement that you have, so that now it seems like you're able to almost like choose how much you want to be involved in the law firm, which is exactly what many of our listeners are trying to do in their businesses, is build a business that they get to do it because they want to, not because they have to. Right. And it sounds like that's
Yeah,
kind of what you
sure.
build. So I'd love for you to speak into that a little bit. Am I reading you correctly in that?
No, that's 100% correct, Caleb. It hasn't always been this way where I can decide what I want to do. But I've got some fantastic people at the law firm. And so I really think the first thing that I had to do was build a very competent team of support staff at the law firm. And have those attorneys that could step in and go try a case when I'm unavailable and do just as good of a job as I can do in trying the case. Otherwise, you've got your client saying, "Hey, I don't really want this other attorney. I want you." And that just draws you back into it. So it took me a long time to recruit really talented attorneys that I had a lot of confidence in, that I felt like I would let them try my case, or that
Hmm.
they could even maybe do better than I could at trying the case. And we've got some very talented folks, on as attorneys and as paralegals, but it took a long time to get that foundation built.
Yeah.
Once it's built, you've got people that you trust, that you enjoy working with, and you've got systems in place, and things become a lot easier. And so I am at a point now where I can actually be the primary point of contact for a particular client if I want to handle that case. But I can also choose to assign that client to another attorney, and I can just sit back and kind of oversee things from a 30,000-foot perspective, which is the kind of, you know, time freedom that I've been looking for this entire time. Because, I started out, and I still work a lot, but I started out working, 80-hour weeks, 7 days a week, never taking a vacation,
Hmm.
and things have definitely um, loosened up since then to where I can afford to take a vacation. Like, for example, I'm taking my family to Fiji. Next week, we leave for Fiji,
Wow.
and we'll be gone for about 10 days.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. I mean, that's gonna be a rough 10 days. I know you're gonna have a hard time sitting on those beaches and. But hey, you mentioned one of the keys to building your law firm was being able to attract high quality talent and bring in attorneys that were as good at trying cases as you were. And
Yes.
that two things come to mind with that, Gib. Number one is a question I want to ask you is what do you do or what have you done that attracts that kind of talent, to recruit that kind of talent to your firm? And then the other kind of part of that is it takes a lot of humility and commitment to something greater to actually be willing to surround yourself with people that you would say are as good or better than you are at this particular thing. And so I'd love for you to speak into both of those things, how you've attracted that kind of talent and then how you've kind of held yourself in that, to actually see value in having people around you that are as good or better than you at what you do.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of attracting that level of talent, what I've done is I've offered these attorneys an opportunity to work inside of the structure that we've got. We've got the
Mhm.
infrastructure to handle, all of the administrative headaches for them. So we handle
Yeah.
all of the billing for them. We do all the accounts receivable and the accounts payable, and we've got an internal team that can take all of that on. We handle the communications with the CPAs and the tax advisors. We handle all the communications with the retirement entities, and so we set up all of those structures for them. And the real big selling point is that we're going to give them a percentage of whatever they earn, and
Yeah.
that is not dependent on how much, like, they have no responsibility for the advertising that we do. So I pay for the
Yeah.
advertising out of my own pocket, and then they get a percentage of whatever they earn. And if I spend, $500,000 on advertising in a particular year, or if I pay zero, it doesn't affect them at all. So they're not
Yeah.
concerned about, oh my goodness, did you see what Gib just did? Gib, went out and put our faces on the side of every bus in town. He went and took 12 billboards in town. He went and bought a bunch of television time. And what I
Mhm.
learned was these attorneys wanted to be able to focus on what they did best, and that was being technicians, right? These attorneys are
Yeah.
technically savvy attorneys, and
Mhm.
they're not necessarily business people like with a business mind or an entrepreneurial mind. And so
Yeah.
I brought those skills to them and said, a lot of them said, look, you're a fantastic marketer. I love what you're doing on your marketing platforms. You're doing all the different buckets, television, buses, billboards, website, social media, all the different buckets. You're hitting all those different buckets. I'd love it if you could do that for me in my particular practice area. But they don't want to be bound to reimburse the firm for those costs, because they want
Yeah.
me to go make all those costs and take all the risk and live or die by the decisions that I make. And so they can just sit back and handle their cases. And so that's
Yeah.
an attractive offering, I think. Um,
No, I think
you know,
I think
y-
that's so good. We have in our kind of in our real estate investing company, something that we've done that's kind of very similar to that idea where we actually recruit and bring on new fund managers to raise capital for real estate deals from their networks. And in doing so, we provide all the back end support, all the legal support, all the accounting and bookkeeping and all that stuff, because the main people that are coming onto the platform are successful entrepreneurs, folks that are crushing it in their lane, that are doing awesome in, whatever business lane it is. And they want to leverage their skill sets to be able to make a meaningful, impact in the real estate space. We've actually created a way for them to do that where they don't have to learn or, hit that steep learning curve and do all of those things that they're not great at, that they don't want to do, the things that they don't want to take on. And so I see you've obviously been able to take that reality and employ it into your law practice. And, when you surround yourself with that kind of talent, do you ever feel like threatened by that talent? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally understand the question. I I mean, I guess we're as attorneys we're really competitive people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like if we were race car drivers, we want to
Yeah.
win the race. We're not looking for second place. So
Yep.
we're definitely very competitive people, but um, you know, I will say that I treat the other firm members as if I work for them, although technically they work for me. It's
Yeah.
always what can I do to better support you? What can I do to make you more successful? Am I doing too much advertising? Am I doing too little? Did I hire the right people? Did I not? And so, I do feel that at times,
Hmm.
but we have a very meaningful connection, with these people where,
Yeah.
um, I go to them and ask them for advice just as much as, if not more, than they ask me. And so I am coming from a place of humility in that this is not the Gib Irons show completely. This is my law firm, but I want them to stay and be comfortable and to thrive. And I want to set them up for success. And so I think they sense that, in the way that I talk
Yeah.
to them, like when something goes away that I didn't expect, or something happens that I didn't foresee occurring. I think they can tell by the way that I interact with them that at the end of the day, I just want them to be successful and I want the best for the firm. And
Yeah.
that kind of carries over to the relationship, from a personal standpoint and a professional one.
Yeah. So, what kind of advice would you give to other, maybe younger attorneys that are wanting to start, or really honestly, let's just not even make it attorneys, right? Let's say any business owner, someone who's starting a business that's going to require them to recruit talent and recruit other people. What kind of advice based on your experience would you give someone like that who's kind of just at that place where they've been the solopreneur for a long time and they're realizing they need to actually start attracting talent, hiring people, bringing people in if they're going to build their business to a point where they can actually step away from it voluntarily and live the life of freedom that they desire? What kind of advice would you give that guy?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say get a mentor and find somebody that's
Mm,
already done what you're trying to do. And
yeah.
that's the most concise answer I can give you. I can tell you that in my law practice, I started out billing hourly, and I still
Hmm.
my personal part of the practice is hourly billing. So Caleb, there's only so many hours in the day, right? And so what I realized was that, depending on my hourly rate, I could only bill so much. Like if I was going to bill 2,000
Yeah.
hours a year, that's a tremendous amount of hours, right? And that means that you're
Yeah.
working, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends. You're not seeing your kids. I've got three, like you mentioned in the introduction, I've got,
Yeah.
a wife and three beautiful little kids, 9, 7, and 4. And
Yeah.
if I want to hit 2,000 hours, I got to work all the time. And so the
Yeah.
only way to make more money was to leverage other people's um, you know skills and to hire other
Yeah.
people and to scale my business. And now, I make money when I'm out at a capital raising conference like Raise Fest in
Yeah.
Phoenix. The firm is making money, and I come back and they've made money while I was gone.
Come on. Yeah, no, that's so good. It's the it really is so good. I think of, Alex Hormozy talks about, um the definition of work, and work is outcome per per inputs of energy. So it's like, what do you get in exchange for how much energy you put into it? And he starts to talk about leverage, right? And he talks about the guy that, you know, uh, makes them, who's gonna do the most work, the guy who can make the most phone calls, right? Or the guy who has the speed dialer, right?
Right,
He's gonna that
right,
enables him to make more calls, or the guy who has 10 people calling on his behalf, nobody will outsell the guy who has 10 people selling for him, right? And even if you could, you're not going to outsell 1,000 people. So
No.
so the idea of leveraging the time, efforts, energy, skills of other people, it's absolutely essential, I think, to building a business that you can limit your active involvement in and you continue to scale and grow. So I want to shift now the conversation over into the private equity firm that you started. I know you started that, what you started the actual private equity firm a little over a year ago. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right in terms of the timeline. It's been about a year now, and
Yeah,
I had some exposure to multifamily prior to that, and was doing some
sure.
masterminds and going to some conferences. But I really started raising capital 1 year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's awesome. And I love how you did it, because I think a lot of people, when they get exposed to the world of private equity and they decide they want to jump in, there's too many people that jump into it without ever having done any investing of their own, right? Of their own money. And I don't think
Yes,
anyone should take responsibility for someone else's money until they've proven that they can be responsible with their own money. Right? Like, why would I trust anyone with
agreed.
my money if they've not ever managed their own money in the way that they're trying to get me to let them do it? And so I love that you started by buying, what you say, 14 condominiums. Then you've got like an Airbnb short-term rental up in Tennessee, and then
That's
you
right.
invested as an LP passive investor in what, close to 1,000 doors or something like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it was
then,
1,300 doors. Yeah.
1,300 doors that you've invested, as an investor in those kind of deals. And so I love how you made that transition. Talk to me about, though, when you started as an investor, and then tell me about the progression, like what, because not everyone is going to grow from being an investor to being a private equity firm manager, right? The CEO of their own private equity firm. How did you make that trajectory? Like, what was it that kind of pushed you further and further in that direction?
Yeah, well, gosh, there's a lot of factors that went into that, Caleb. But when I first started out with the 14 single family properties, I realized that that's a heck of a lot of loan closings to do. I had, I mean, I bought a couple of those properties like at two or three at a time, but
Hmm.
several of them were one offs, and I had all these loan closings, all these loan packages to do. It was just a very time consuming thing.
Yeah.
And they're long-term rentals, and I wasn't making a ton of money off of them either. They were paying for themselves, and I was getting just a little bit of cash flow, like maybe $100 per month per unit. I mean, really
Right.
pretty nominal, right? In the big scheme of things. It's definitely
Yeah.
not going to move the needle for me. And the short-term rental property up in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, I bought that property for 1.85 million. I paid $370,000 down. I had an
Hmm.
interest rate of 2.5% on that property.
Mm,
It was back when
wow.
interest rates were,
That's
at an all-time
beautiful.
low. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
It was an amazing thing, and I took a loan for 1.5 million and paid, the down payment as well. And so what I ended up with was like a good cash flowing property. It probably cash
Mhm.
flows positive about $100,000 per year, which is pretty
Wow.
nice. That is
Oh, yeah.
significant. $100,000 of passive income does change my
Yeah.
life to a certain extent. Unlike
Yeah.
the 14 condos before, but it was a massive amount of work to get that Airbnb set up. And I mean, I'm
Mhm.
talking about my wife and I spent well over 100 hours sourcing all the furniture, getting it set up. We bought it and closed on it on December 21st of 2022.
Yeah.
And we had to um, get in there and get our tenants in there, prior to end of year to place it in service by December 31st. And so it
Yeah.
was an amazingly hard lift. And so when I started investing in multifamily passively, what I realized was it was kind of like buying stock. I was betting on the operator and
Mhm.
their proven track record of success, and it was it was hands off after that. Like my due diligence was in selecting the right operator and looking at the right deal, right? And I put them
Yep.
in that order, like operator first, deal second.
100%.
If if I don't vibe good with the operator, I don't care if their numbers look like it's, a 100x return.
Oh,
That
yeah.
means nothing to me. And that was one of the reasons why I think you and I, had that really good relationship from the first time that we met back in October. And I thought, this guy
Yeah.
really knows what he's doing and he's honest and transparent and, got a track record. And that's what
Yeah.
has been the driver for me in making these decisions. But, gosh, I was already getting huge tax benefits before Caleb with
Mhm.
the other investments I had done, the long term and the short term rentals. But
Yeah.
I have gotten insane depreciation from my passive investments in multifamily
Come
real
on.
estate. Like, look, I did a deal last year that gave me 1.1x bonus depreciation. So I invested 500K and I got $550,000 in K1 losses in year one.
Yeah.
And so that
Yep.
particular year, I had like $1 million of income. That was my personal income, like about $1 million, and I paid $50,000 in tax that year, which is less
Come
than I've
on.
paid in other years when I made 400 or 500. Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's absolute, man. People, if I could like implant this into specifically entrepreneurs, right? If I could plant this one thought into entrepreneurs' brain, it's like if you can let go of the need to be solely in the driver's seat of everything that you're involved in, right? If you can let go of that one thing, then it is unbelievable what you can accomplish in terms of investing, right? Investing in,
absolutely.
passively in apartment type syndications, multifamily deals. I mean, yeah, and going back to something that you said about the most important due diligence that anyone can do is on the operator. And at our firm, Oak IQ Investments, um, we talk a lot about our core investment philosophy, right? And the
Hmm.
number one thing on our core investment philosophy is the team is more important than the deal. The
Yep.
team is more
Yep.
important than the deal. The deal's important, but the team is more important than the deal. The people that are actually executing on the opportunity, that's the thing that is going to make or break the deal. Because I've seen great deals go south because of bad operators, and I've seen bad deals get turned around and go better because of, you know, a great operations team, right? So I would love, we're kind of approaching the end of the show, but before we go into the
Sure.
exit
Sure.
round, kind of our final round of questions, I would love, since we're talking to entrepreneurs and a lot of them, they may actually have the desire to do exactly what you have done and become a passive real estate investor. So, what are some of the things when you're vetting an operator to go, invest with an operator? Give me the top 3 or 4 things that are most important to you when vetting, an apartment investment opportunity and vetting the operator.
Yeah, so I want to look at I want them to have a proven track record of success. I don't want,
Mhm.
somebody that this is their very first syndication, or
Yep.
they don't have any experience in real estate. I
Yep.
want somebody with a proven track record. I want an operator that is going to have excellent communication skills. I want a white glove service. If the person acts like they don't have enough time to talk to me when they're trying to persuade me to invest in their deal, then that's
Yep.
a huge red flag. Like,
Absolutely.
eh, imagine how they're going to treat you once you invest with them and they already have your money. If you can't get their time during the time that they're trying to persuade you to join the deal, that's a huge red flag.
Yep.
Track record, communication, and a lot of it, I like to see how they communicate with their investors. How frequently are they going to send updates? What kind of updates are we going to get? Are they going to give me detailed financial reports? And,
Yep.
tell me the truth too. Like, a lot of bad things can happen when you're running a project of that scale, right? Like, if you're running a
Mm-hmm.
300 unit apartment complex, whether it's value add or build to rent or whatever your project is, a lot of bad things happen. To me, it instills more confidence in me when they tell me we had a fire at the property and it burned
Yep.
down 36 units of the property, which has just happened to me
Yep.
recently in one of my investments.
Yeah.
And they fixed it, and they got in there and they got the insurance money and they got everything back up and running, and we're back at like 90% occupancy now, and we're trending upwards. And so to me, I'm all in favor of giving your investors the bad news and telling them how you're going to go about fixing it. Or if you don't know, you tell them this is what we know, this is what we don't know, and we'll get back to you to bridge the gap. To me, that is just, if it's all good news, you know, I feel like there's not enough transparency. I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. Just keep me up to date. If something goes sideways in a deal, I'm a sophisticated investor. I understand that that can happen. And I'll still support the
Yeah.
operator, but I just want to know, what's going on, and hit me with the real story.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I think that really is kind of how I would put those things in the top priorities as well. It's communication, it's honesty, it's being upfront, about the challenges, because too many, syndication operators make it look like, oh, this is just going to be a walk in the park and be easy. And I think those are the ones that are running deals that are kind of in distress right now, are the people that were just kind of view the world through rose colored glasses and think that, oh, everything's going to be fine. The market's just going to lift it up. We had a 12-year bull run in multifamily and it's just going to continue. And we've got a great, it's like, well, now we got some headwind in the market. And now it kind of comes down, it's weeding out those sort of mediocre operators that were just riding the macro trend. And so, absolutely no. So, well, man, I wish I could sit here and talk about multifamily investing all day. It's something that, we're both very passionate
Yeah,
about, of course, and want
sure.
folks to learn more about and get interested in. But we're kind of at the point in the show where we go into the exit round. We ask all of our guests the same 5 questions at the end of every show. And I want to ask you those 5 questions, Gibbs. So I just have one question to start. Are you ready for the exit round?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's
Let's
do it.
go exit round. Okay, so first question: what is your all-time favorite business book?
So I had to think about this a little bit, Caleb, but I'm going to go with Rich Dad Poor Dad. I know it's a very common response, but that book taught me the paradigm shift about how you can use debt and how in a positive way. And I had never
Yeah,
associated debt with anything positive, and that was a huge paradigm shift. Now, the book did not explain to me exactly how to go about doing what they were suggesting, but it
yeah,
created that paradigm shift in my mind, which is a game changer when you start looking at debt as possibly being a positive thing. And how can I use debt, to supercharge my returns?
yeah. No, that's excellent. Rich Dad Poor Dad is absolutely one of the favorites here in the Own the Exit community. So yeah. So second question: what percentage of your current income would you call passive?
I'd say probably about 20 to 25% would be my best estimate. As an attorney, some years I might make a 7-figure salary, and some years I might, make significantly less. So there,
Yeah.
with law firms like any other business, there's ebb and flow, right? And if we have a really
Hmm.
big case, we might make $1 million or more, or multiple
Yeah.
millions. But I would say about 20 to 25% of my income is passive, and I expect that number to go up significantly when some of these deals that I've invested in go full cycle, because I've deployed
Hmm.
about $2 million into multifamily real estate just within the past 2 years.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. What is one thing that you wish you could do more of, but your business commitments are holding you back?
So I would say I'm going to go with offshore fishing on that one. I
That's a
love
good one.
offshore fishing, but the problem with it is that it's offshore, and
Yeah.
you don't, get cell phone reception out there unless you've got, there are certain boats that have satellite capability, but
Yeah.
I normally fish on a 26-foot center console, and so I don't get reception out there when I'm fishing. And it's like a 12 to 15 hour commitment to get out there and get back. And so that's got to be the thing. I'm it's getting to be springtime here in Eastern North Carolina, and I'm excited to
Mhm.
get back out there at least a couple of days and do what I love.
Yeah. And let's be honest, maybe one of the reasons you do like it is because you don't get cell reception. Right? Like, let's be real about it.
It
So,
uh, uh, yeah, I mean, it's an adventure, and
uh-huh.
it's a mandatory checkout, right? You've got to check
Yep.
out of, dealing with your emails, and I get about 200 to 300 emails per day, and
Yeah.
they're not all stuff I have to do anything with, but that's the average daily quota, and so it is very freeing to get away from the cell phone and the email.
100%, man. I totally can relate. So, all right, here we go. Question number 4. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself about building a business?
So I would just say, take risk and don't be afraid to fail. I have
Yeah.
failed a lot in my business, and a lot of times the only way to figure out what works is to do what doesn't work. So it could be that you have 4 or 5 failures, or maybe even 40 or 50 failures, and then you get
Yeah.
zoned in and locked in on what actually works. And so I
Yeah.
have found that the business owners and entrepreneurs that I respect make a decision. They're very decisive, and they carry it out, and they believe in it 100% until the data points say this is not the right path. And then you change. But I have always been afraid to fail. And that held me back a lot at the beginning of my
Mm.
entrepreneurial journey, because I was scared. Like, people are going to be, it's embarrassing if I hire this, company and it doesn't work, or if I, make the wrong decision, or fire this person, or, sometimes you just got to go with your gut, be decisive, make a decision, live with the consequences, and be prepared to, the Marines always say, shoot, move, and communicate. And, you've just
Yeah.
got to continue moving.
Yeah. I love that. Shoot, move, and communicate. It's a really good philosophy to live by as an entrepreneur, right? And so that's really good. I think it adds a lot of value to our community. So last question here: what is your strategy and tactic for creating time freedom and financial freedom for yourself? You can give 1 or 2 tips, tactical tips on how to create financial freedom and time freedom for yourself and for your family.
I mean, I think passive investing is the biggest one for me.
Yeah.
I
I had a sneaky suspicion that might be an answer. So I agree with
yeah,
that answer. I endorse
y-
this answer.
yeah. I mean, I figured you would, Caleb. For me, passive investing has been a game changer, and like I said before, there's only so many hours in the day, and if I want to be able to make more money, I need to be able to have more time freedom, right? Like, the more time freedom I have, the more I'm going to be able to focus on the things that really move the needle for me. So passive investing is a huge one. And then I think, my second one would be time management, um, be really deliberate about what I'm going to do the next day. Like, I love to go home and be like, first thing tomorrow morning, I'm going to tackle the hardest thing on my to do
Hmm.
list. And I'm going to do it during the wee hours of the morning before the rest of my staff gets there. And that way, when they
Yeah.
arrive, I've already got a sense of confidence. Like, our confidence wanes, right? As human beings, we
Yeah.
have times where we're more confident than others, but confidence is something that you can work on continuously, and you do that by small wins, little wins. And so for me, it's a win to get to
Yeah.
the office at a certain time in the morning. It's a win to go ahead and tackle that first assignment. And then when people come in, I'm like, look, I've already built confidence today. And so it's a daily thing
Yeah.
for me. And it's just,
Yeah.
confidence comes from small wins and doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. I love that. I think a lot about compounding confidence through making decisions, right? When you make a decision, there's like a sense of relief and then there's a sense of confidence. It's like, oh, I made it. And then it's like, oh, I made it, right? Like I made the decision. And so I love that, starting your day by getting some wins under your belt, making some good decisions, that kind of thing. So I love that. Well, man, Gib, this conversation has been awesome. We could keep talking for a whole lot longer, but we've kind of approached the end of the show here. So hey, let our listeners know how they can track with you. What's the best way for them to kind of follow along with you and continue learning and growing from you?
Yeah, Caleb. So, anybody that wants to reach out to me, the best thing to do is to go to my website at ironsequity.com.
Come on. Ironsequity.com. So everybody, if you want to track with Gib, you want to learn more, just go to ironsequity.com and you can kind of get all the information about Gib that you could possibly want there. And so that's awesome. Thanks again, Gib, for joining us here for Own the Exit. It's been a pleasure to have you. I know you've added a lot of value to our community here, and I just look forward to continuing to build this relationship and things like that. And man, I'm just grateful to have excellent guests like you for this show. So
Thank you, Caleb.
everybody, thanks again for joining us for Own the Exit. If this show or any of our episodes have impacted you in any way, would you do us a favor and go ahead and leave us a review, subscribe, and share this with someone that you know who you think would benefit from these types of conversations. All right. So again, that's all of everything for today's episode. Thanks again for listening to Own the Exit.